been a conspiracy theory that made you at least think for a minute?
No. Really, no. It's just, if you know the history, and I want you to, we'll get through this, and I'm going to give you my take on it. I told you I'd do that. But I just don't believe it. I think people don't believe that some pathetic loser like Lee Harvey Oswald could kill the most important person in the world. I just don't think people could get into that. But that's a good question. All right, now, I want you to kind of listen to the story, and I'll obviously be going a little faster. But we're back to the theater, where Oswald has been arrested and put in the car. And that's where we're at now, as Oswald's taken back to Dallas Police Headquarters. So they escort him out of the Texas Theater. There's an angry mob there. Oswald's placed in the police car, and he's placed in the back of the car between two officers, and two other officers in front of the car. So they have 4 police officers in the car. One driving, one on the passenger side, 2 in the back, Oswald right in the middle. Okay? One of the officers asks Oswald his name. Silence. Finally, Oswald blurts out, "Why are you treating me this way? All I did was go into the theater with a pistol." Now, this is just kind of the start of his thought process. Oswald was then told that he killed a police officer, in which Oswald acts surprised and says, "A police officer's been killed?" Then the officers decide to go through Oswald's wallet looking for identification. And an officer reaches into his wallet, back pocket, pulls out his wallet. When looking at the contents of his wallet, they find an ID with the name Lee Harvey Oswald. And Oswald is asked if he is Lee Harvey Oswald, and again there's only silence. Well, as the officer continues his search of the wallet, he finds a second ID. And that name is A.J. Heidel, which we'll talk about quite a bit here. And Oswald asks, "Are you Alec Heidel?" And he again refuses to answer. Well, nothing more is really said during the ride back to police headquarters. At 1:58 p.m. on November 22nd, we're still on the same day, Oswald and police arrive from the Texas Theater, and they arrive at police headquarters in downtown Dallas. Well, after they arrive at the Dallas Police Headquarters, this is important to know, Oswald is taken to the 3rd floor and taken to room 317 in the Homicide and Robbery Division. That's where that division is. It's on the 3rd floor. And he's taken to room 317, and they place him into a small holding room, and he's handcuffed behind his back as he sits in that room. Now, by this time on November 22nd, 1963, the Dallas police have the following evidence against Oswald for the murder of Officer Tippett. Okay, they've got eyewitnesses in both Helen Markham and Ted Calloway. They find the 4 spent .38 shell casings, remember, that he discarded in the grass when he walked near Mrs. Markham, and police officers who witnessed Oswald attempting to shoot police officers in the Texas Theater. So they've got a pretty solid case, don't they, against him shooting Officer Tippett. Well, once Oswald was placed in that holding room at police headquarters, it was realized at that time, and that time for the first time, that not only was he the guy that shot Tippett, he was also the guy that met the description of the missing employee from the Texas School Book Depository. So that's when that was discovered and not before. Now let's look at what evidence they have as far as the killing of President Kennedy. It's not going to be as clear as the evidence against the Tippett shooting. They have the rifle used in the assassination. They have the 3 spent shell casings from the rifle that were found by the window of the 6th floor of the school book depository. They have police verifying that Oswald worked in the building in which the assassination occurred. Police also have verified that Oswald had access to the 6th floor of that building at the time of the assassination. And police have also verified that Oswald was the only employee who left the depository right after the shooting. Okay? And they had an eyewitness. Who was the eyewitness? Anybody remember who that was that said he saw him shooting from the 3rd window? Howard Brennan. Howard Brennan. We'll get to some of that later. Okay? Now, what solid evidence do they not have? This is where I want you to kind of listen and think. What don't they have they really need? That's exactly right. Evidence that ties Oswald to the rifle used in the assassination. That's big. That's what they got to get. Now, as Oswald's sitting in this holding room on the 3rd floor, Captain Will Fritz, remember we talked about him earlier? He was the guy that they yelled down and told him that the sniper's post had been found. He's going to be the man to assign to interrogate Oswald. He's very highly respected, and he's headed up every homicide in Dallas for the past 30 years. They believe if anyone can get a confession out of Oswald on the murder of the president, he can do it. They don't need a confession on the murder of Tippit. They got overwhelming evidence that he shot J.D. Tippit. Okay? Now, Captain Fritz returned to police headquarters from the Texas School Book Depository, and this is the information that he had. First of all, he had witnessed the sniper's nest on the 6th floor of the School Book Depository. He had seen the rifle that was used in the assassination, and he had the name of the missing employee. So he's seen the sniper's nest, he's seen the rifle, he knows who Lee Harvey Oswald is, as far as being the missing employee is. You ever seen him? Does he know what he looks like? No, he just knows that some guy named Lee Harvey Oswald was the guy that was missing. So he just knows his name at this time. Well, at this point, Captain Fritz doesn't know Oswald has been captured and arrested for the murder of Officer J.D. Tippit. He's just arriving, but he is the man they're going to assign to that. So, Fritz had done his homework, and he wanted to find Oswald. He didn't know Oswald was there, and he looked at his application that he filled out to work at the Texas School Book Depository. And Oswald didn't put 1026. What's wrong? Maybe hair stuff?
Yeah, there was something
He didn't put the address down of 1026 North Beckley. He didn't put that as his address. He put an address in Irving, Texas, which was a suburb of Dallas, just like Oak Cliff was. So he doesn't put his address on his application of North Beckley Street. He puts an address in Irving. So Captain Fritz got the address, and he decided he needed to find out if he was there. So he ordered 2 police officers to secure a search warrant for him. And one of the officers realized that Captain Fritz was looking for Lee Harvey Oswald's whereabouts, and he said, well, Captain, you don't have to go out to Irving and get him because here he sits. And for the first time, Fritz realized that Oswald was in police custody, because he was going to send a search party out to see if he was at this address in Irving. Okay? Well, at that time, Oswald was taken to Captain Fritz's office by police officers, and Fritz began his interrogation of Oswald. Now, here was the goal of the Dallas police. By the end of the day, they not only wanted to charge him with the murder of J.D. Tippit, but they also wanted to charge him with the murder of President Kennedy. That was the goal. How are they going to do that? They either got a confession out of him, or they tied the rifle to him. Those are the 2 things that had to be done. Now, Oswald wasn't going to get away from him, because they had already charged him with the murder of police officer J.D. Tippit. He wasn't going to throw out thousands of dollars in bail. So Fritz knew he had plenty of time to try to get the information by the end of the day. Now, as the interrogation began, Captain Fritz, in his usual very calm voice, asked Lee Harvey Oswald what his name is. And he responds by saying, you know my name, you've got it in the papers. And Captain Fritz says in return, well, why don't you tell us yourself, just for the record? And Oswald says, Lee Harvey Oswald. My name is Lee Harvey Oswald. Then Captain Fritz asked Oswald about this other ID card that they found on the way to the Dallas Police Department, the A.J. Heidel. And Captain Fritz asked Oswald if that was an alias, and Oswald responded by saying it was something he, quote, picked up in New Orleans, which is a whole nother story that we'll get to. Oswald then began to complain about the handcuffs being too tight behind his back. And so Captain Fritz, thinking that if he treated Oswald like a human being, might allow him to open up a little bit, give him some better information, allows Oswald to be handcuffed in front of him. So he unhooks the handcuffs from the back, puts them in the front so he can be more comfortable, thinking that the conversation will go better. Well, at this point in the conversation, they're doing pretty well. Oswald is very relaxed and calm. He's responding to Fritz's questioning, and all of that changed at 3:15 p.m. when an FBI agent by the name of James Hosty enters the room. Now, at this point in the interrogation, FBI agent Hosty comes in and introduces himself to Oswald. And as soon as he tells Oswald who he is, Oswald just erupts. He pounds his hands violently on the table and he says, "This man has been harassing my wife. My wife is a Russian citizen and is protected by diplomatic law from harassment by the FBI. Your FBI is no better than the Nazi Gestapo." He just gets pissed. And he starts pounding his hands and he says this guy's been harassing his wife. Well, it was kind of true because Oswald had earlier sent a threatening letter to Agent Hosty at the Dallas FBI office for harassing his wife before the assassination. And what happened is Captain Fritz was kind of shocked and he finds out for the first time that Oswald has connections to Russia, which we haven't even talked about yet, but we will. We told you a little bit about it. Oswald spent nearly 3 years in Russia from 1959 to 1962, and ever since he got back, because of the Cold War, the FBI had him under surveillance, which it makes sense, doesn't it? You got an American going over to Russia, spending almost 3 years, bringing back a Russian wife. Not only that, he served in the United States Marine Corps before he went over. So that, red flag, red flag, red flag. So when he gets back, the FBI is having surveillance on him. Way before the assassination. Now, 2 weeks before the assassination, Agent Hosty made a routine visit to a home in Irving, Texas. And Agent Hosty believed that Oswald was living at that home. Why would he think he was living at a home in Irving just like Fritz thought? His application, they didn't know anything about his wife living there because his application to work at the Texas School Book Depository, again, had that address down. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Hosty arrives at the home of Ruth Payne, and he discovers that Oswald's wife, Marina, was living there with their 2 children. This is Agent Hosty. Okay, he doesn't know this. He's not looking for Marina or the 2 children. He's looking for Oswald. Okay, and I think I mentioned some of this. Lee and Marina were separated at the time of the assassination, and Mrs. Payne had befriended Marina. And since Mrs. Payne was also separated from her husband, she invited Marina and her children to live with her and her small children. So she was just being nice, okay, and letting her live there. Because she knew that Lee Harvey Oswald was kind of a bad dude. Very abusive, those types of things. Well, when Agent Hosty discovered that Oswald didn't live in Irving at Mrs. Payne's house, because where was he living? In the boarding house on North Beckley Street, Hosty asked Marina how he could get in touch with her husband. And neither she nor Ruth Payne knew the address of Oswald's boarding house in Oak Cliff. They didn't make it up or lie. They simply didn't know. Okay, she was a little bit estranged from him at the time. Okay, so Hosty leaves Marina one of his business cards, and he asked Marina to have Lee call him so they could talk. Well, Marina did the next best thing. She said, my husband works at the Texas School Book Depository. You can look for him there. Okay? Well, 2 weeks later, on November 22nd, the day of the assassination, Hosty's sitting in his office finding out that this Lee Harvey Oswald, who he's been looking for, is the guy they have in custody, probably for shooting the President of the United States. He's supposed to have this guy under surveillance, right? Well, Hosty gets out his files on Oswald, and he's shocked to discover that a new file came into the FBI office on Oswald 2 days before the assassination. Now listen to this. In that file is a copy of a letter that Oswald had written to the Soviet embassy in the United States. And in that letter, Oswald mentioned he had been to Mexico City in late September, that's before the assassination, and had visited both the Cuban and Soviet embassies there. Let me kind of help you out with this. He was in Russia, he came back. Didn't like his life in the United States. He went to Mexico City, he went to the Cuban embassy, and he went to the Russian embassy, and he asked both embassies if they would give him a visa, temporary passport to either go to Cuba or go to Russia. And they told him, get the hell out of here, basically. So he comes back from there to Texas. Does that make sense? So he tried to flee to another communist country after he got back. And that's going to be a key thing to remember when I give you my take on what happened here. Okay? So he did go to Mexico City. According to that file that Hosty looked at, he visited the Soviet embassy and the Cuban embassy and asked if he could get visa or temporary passports to go to those countries. They told him no, send him on his way. Keep that in mind. Well, in addition, that letter that Oswald wrote, he stated that he had visited Valery Kostakov. Now, Valery Kostakov was a Russian in charge of political assassinations in the Western Hemisphere. So, if you're Hosty and you're reading this stuff, now what are you wondering to yourself? Oh my God, did the Russian KBG hire Oswald to shoot the president? And what was your job supposed to be the last few weeks? Surveillance on this guy. Okay. Now, so, Hosty's nervous. He's wondering if the Soviet KGB had encouraged Oswald to kill President Kennedy. If so, this action on the part of Oswald could lead the United States into World War III. And according to our videos we watched, did Lyndon Johnson have some suspicions the Russians might be involved? Yes. So this is the reason that Hosty so hastily arrived at police headquarters at 3:15 p.m. because he wanted to be part of this interrogation, and he wants to see if Oswald could possibly be part of a Soviet-Cuban plot to kill the president. He's nervous. So Hosty walks into the interrogation room. Oswald gets upset. Fritz tries to calm him down, and Hosty backs off because he really doesn't want to step on Fritz's toes. He tells Captain Fritz, hey, I'll explain to you later why I am here. Go ahead, and I'll just sit in and listen. Okay, so that's where we're at. Well, after this exchange between Oswald and Hosty, Captain Fritz continues to interview Oswald, and as I mentioned, Hosty continues to sit in on the interview. Well, Captain Fritz asks Oswald 3 direct questions. 1, do you work in the school book depository? 2, do you have access to all rooms in the depository? 3, why did you leave the depository? What's Oswald's answer to the first 2?
Yes.
Yes. The third question, why did you leave the depository? He simply said, I didn't think there'd be any more work during the day, so I just got up and left. I didn't think we were going to be doing anything the rest of the day. Well, Oswald, when asked where he went, he stated to Fritz that he went to his boarding house to change clothes, get his gun, and go to the movies. That's what he told him. And when asked why you would take a gun to the movies, Oswald responds, because I felt like it. That was his answer. None of this is made up. Well, he admitted to pulling his pistol at the theater, stating it was wrong, and he said, you know, I was clocked for doing it, and I deserve it. So he admits to Fritz, yeah, I did it. I pulled my gun out of the theater. It was the wrong thing to do. I got clocked for doing it, and I deserved it. Well, Fritz asked Oswald more questions. Did you bring a rifle to work? Do you own a rifle? Did you ever own a rifle? Guess what his answer was to all 3? No. 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 Captain Fritz ever asked him then if he ever received any firearms training. And he said that he did when he served in the Marine Corps. Okay, so now Fritz knows that he was in the Marines. The big question comes next. Captain Fritz says, Lee, did you shoot the president? And he answers, no, I emphatically deny that. Did you shoot the officer in Oak Cliff? Lee answered, no, I deny that too. I mean, how do you deny that? I mean, see, this is where we're going here. Well, FBI agent Hosty can't take it anymore. He's just about to explode. And finally, he asked Captain Fritz to ask Oswald if he had ever been to Mexico City, because that was his concern. Fritz repeated Hosty's question to Oswald, who replied that I'd been to Mexico while I was in the Marine Corps. And Hosty clarifies and he says, not Mexico, have you ever been to Mexico City? And Oswald's reply was, what makes you think I've been to Mexico City? I've never been there. Now Hosty knows he's lying, because he wrote a letter that was in the FBI file that was accumulated that stated in his own handwriting that he had been to Mexico City. Okay? Suddenly, a police officer walks into the room and tells Captain Fritz that the first lineup is ready. Now let me explain a lineup. A lineup, and I kind of said this before, is where you have Oswald and some dummy, unrecognizable people, so to speak. I mean, these people don't know. And you bring in a witness, and they look at these people and say, hey, is this the guy that did whatever? And there's a bright light that shines in the face of the lineup people, so they can't see who's talking over there. Does that make sense? So, we go to the first lineup. So before Lee Harvey Oswald was brought to the first lineup, they searched him officially for the first time. In the police car, they just took his wallet, right? So, here's what they find when they search him. And this is pretty important, and it goes into what my philosophy is. They find a bus transfer ticket that was, and the bus he was going to transfer onto. Remember he got on that city bus? Okay, it was a transfer, and he was going to transfer off that city bus. In other words, remember it was so slow he got off? Well, he had plans to get on that bus and go somewhere and transfer and get on another bus somewhere. Well, that transfer station where he was going to transfer off the bus was just 2 blocks from where Tippit was shot. So he was in the area, and if Tippit doesn't stop him, for example, he's probably on a bus somewhere else. And I'll tell you, that's my theory on that. But this is what a bus transfer ticket looks like, and this is a sample of the fake ID that Oswald pulled out of his wallet and gave to police officers in the car. But that's a bus transfer ticket. And keep that in mind, that his idea originally was to get on that city bus and go so far, and he was going to get off a bus station here and transfer onto another bus and go somewhere here. And that transfer station was just 2 blocks from where Tippit was shot. So he was almost